PG, you got yours? You?
Oh, I'm not finished though.
Okay.
I've got to think about it.
Gotta think about it. That's great. That's great. How's that going? Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited. This is gonna be awesome. I'm super. Are y'all excited to be here?
Round of
Big round of applause for. All right. So that's what's up. So I know most of y'all know me, but I'm going to go ahead and give an introduction anyway and let y'all know why we're here and what we're doing. Obviously, I'm Eric Yao, co-owner of Apex Title. Andrea Goebel, sitting at my desk, is the other co-owner of Apex Title. I'm also the owner of Yao Home Buyers, and my partner and wife is Erin. I feel like I should turn that camera towards you. You want to come say hi? So we own Yao Home Buyers, which is a real estate investment company. We do lots of flips, lots of rentals, new construction, development, that kind of thing. Apex Title, full service title company. We can do it all to include creative financing, owner finance, all of those types of things. And your traditional, owner occupied buyer, seller flips, rentals, that kind of thing. So we do all of that. I'm also running for judge. Did y'all know that? Did you know that I'm running for judge? I don't know if you can see it like literally everywhere you go. But I am running for judge for General Sessions Judge and Juvenile Court Judge here in Montgomery County Division 2. I would kindly ask you for your vote. Would love your support, but that's not why we're here. It's just hopefully you'll support me. Obviously we got coffee and food. Big thanks to F&M Bank. F&M Bank, Sally Ely sponsored our wonderful gift bags and lunch from Nicoletta's and then had to leave. She couldn't stick around, but big round of applause for Sally. Her business cards and such and lots of swag are going to be in the gift bag, so grab one of those on your way out. And as we do these in the future, we will of course have various other food sponsors with other gift bags, and we'll have some more excitement along the way. I really think this is going to be something that's going to catch on. My motives for doing this, I'm not a guru. I'm not somebody who's going to sell you my course. Come for the free class and then let me sell you this $20,000 package or anything like that. That's not who I am, not how I work. Obviously, I have some motives. I would like to help you build your net worth, build your real estate, meet your goals. I also want to help Apex Title and see if Apex Title can help you. I in my capacity, we in our capacity of Yao Home Buyers, of course, we would like to partner with you or lend to you or just network with you and obviously grow together. I believe the rising tide lifts all ships. And then, of course, I'm running for judge and would love your vote. So I've got some ulterior motives for this. Did I mention I'm running for judge? So I've got some ulterior motives, but I'm not selling anything. And that's what perhaps distinguishes me in this class from maybe some others. Not that I'm knocking them. I love them, and I think that's a great route to go. But thank you for being here. This is literally the inaugural and certainly an introductory class. I plan to do these more. So, plan to come back. You will have done the introductory class, you who are here, and so the next one that you will have would hopefully be the next level up, so to speak, if we do it that way. I'll probably wind up doing a bunch of introductory classes and then some for wholesale and some for flipping, some specifically for multifamily, things like that. I might have guest speakers if we keep doing this. Joel Ragland from Apex Title, he is our title attorney. Might have him come up, for instance, and talk about closings and what we really need from investors, especially wholesalers who tend to botch everything along the way, and then we have to clean up a mess and reconnect communication. Oh, you know what I'm talking about, right? So we'll do those kinds of things as well. I appreciate you doing your questionnaire, at least most of you. Sorry, nobody look back. So I looked through some of these, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I wanted to do this so that I know who my audience is. I do these kinds of teachings all the time with two people at coffee or one guy at lunch or over a phone call and that kind of thing. And so it's easy for me to get to know people. I have done mentoring for a fee. Again, I'm not pitching that or selling that necessarily, but in my mentoring for a fee, for instance, I want to get to know the person and figure out what their goals are, what their motives are. And so I wanted to get this. And besides Shelton, who I said I wouldn't call out, his goal is fun. Like he does it for fun. The majority of you said I want passive income, which is obviously the substantive content of a rental real estate, class. I want to build a portfolio for passive income, maybe so I can quit my job. Several of you put for generational wealth and so forth. Andrea's here because I told her she had to be here. Another build generational wealth, passive income. So there's a recurring theme, self-empowerment. That's very good because this will, of course, empower you to do great things. I enjoy the process and it's fun. I'm with you on that. Financial independence. So we've got kind of a recurring theme. Financial freedom. Thanks, Eric. Long-term wealth and cash flow. I'm going to read her answers aloud and not tell you who they came from. Yeah, same kind of thing. And again, I didn't intend to call anybody out necessarily, but I wanted to get an idea of who's in the class. When I pitched the class, I said, let's have people who are 0 to 4. So you want to be an investor in real estate, or maybe you are and you want to grow. If I were to further develop that title or that class substantive content, goal set, I would say you want 10 or more. So do y'all agree with me? I want 10 or more, right? And some of you may be thinking, I want 100 or more, Some of you may be in that realm. And that's okay, that's great, I think that's cool. The other 2 questions that I put on the questionnaire, do you already invest? And that's for me, that just helps me understand. Some of you have a couple of doors, some of you want a couple of doors, and you're trying to move in that direction. And then the last question on the questionnaire was, what charitable organizations do you support? And that just helps me put it in a frame of reference. Are you already active in the community, already supporting these types of charitable organizations and that kind of thing? A key component for me in investing in real estate, before we even get to the math and how to do it, is the why. A key component to me is why. Why do I want to invest in real estate? And my why has changed over the years. My goals have changed over the years. There was a time when I first started in 2017, January of 17, I wrote down my goals. Here are my goals. I want to get 4 doors in 2017. And here's my, and I started writing down these goals. I'm a strong advocate for, writing down your goals, short-term, mid-term, long-term. Short-term within this year, mid-term under 5 years, long-term 10 or more, perhaps all the way out to retirement. And so I'm writing down, here's what I want to do. I want to build just a little bit of passive income and build a retirement, portfolio of rentals. 2017, I said I want 4 doors, 1 per quarter. All right, so into 2017, I had like 12. I mean, it was crazy. My goals developed over time. Then the goal became, I want 40 by 40. I'm going to be 40 in September, by the way. And so that goal had to change because we've exceeded that. And so my mindset has been, what am I trying to accomplish? What do I want to do? And my goals are going to be different from yours. My aspirations are different from yours. But if you have those aspirations, if you can write down those goals, know your why. Why do I want to do this? Is it to build passive income? Is it to set aside, wealth for retirement? Is it to build generational wealth? I like to say that I'm changing my children's future when I'm investing in real estate. And literally right now, I'm changing your children's future. We are doing this together. We're changing our lineage as it continues. I'm a first generation, success story entrepreneur in my family, and I hope that my kids continue on that trend, and I hope yours do as well, if that's your prerogative. But what is your why? We support a variety of charitable organizations, and I don't want to hammer on that too much, but I want you to be thinking, if we are going to grow financially together, have a bigger purpose than merely I want passive income, I want generational wealth, I want financial freedom, I want to quit my job because I hate it, or I want whatever it is. Beyond just the I, go ahead and start thinking right now, assuming right now is day 1, I want to do something for other people. I want to be able to bless other people. Something I started recently is giving goals, which is actually literally, I started that this year. We've been, philanthropic and charitable over the years, but, do we all give as much as we can? Do we really give as much as we have capacity? I know what the Bible says. The Bible says, give as you've been prospered, Give till it hurts, sacrifice. And I'm like, I can spare this, and I'll give this to Manna Cafe or whatever. And some of you have Manna Cafe and Loaves of Fish and stuff. But starting this year, I've got giving goals. There is a dollar amount that I want to give away. And so now I am challenging myself to, what have I got to do to be able to do that? Make the dollars. So it's challenging me in my business and my life and my, my entrepreneurialism and my networking. It's challenged me to first make the dollars, but it's also challenging me to find, good reasons and ways and beneficiaries to which I can give that money. And I pray that I can accomplish that goal that we can accomplish that goal this year, and then in the coming years that goal goes up higher and higher. I see people who are extremely philanthropic, in our community, and I look at that, I'm like, man, that is awesome. I want to send kids to college that I've never met. I want to buy people a house or give people a house that I've never met because they need that. The Department of Children's Services will reach out to us from time to time and say, hey, we got this family that needs such and such, and I love that we're in the capacity to go and help and bless these people. I want to do more. That's my why. I don't want to be wealthy or have a magnificent rental portfolio because of me or because of the I. Now, granted, I'll have a Lamborghini Huracan Performante one day, but that's not my why. My why is, the philanthropic charitable efforts. So know your why, set your goals, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, and write them down. Short-term is, between now and the end of the year or a calendar year. Mid-term is, say, 5 years. Long-term is 10 or more, even extending all the way out to retirement. And definitely write your goals down. Those goals will change. Because when you get through that 1 year, if today is day one of that 1 year, when you get through that 1 year, invariably you're going to either do more or less than whatever that goal was that you set, and you'll have to adapt. You'll have to change, you'll have to manipulate, and if you follow me in my advice, or if you let me help you, you will exceed that goal, very likely, and then we'll adapt from that. We'll adjust from that and go beyond and continue to improvise and adapt, growing together. You'll realize that the sky is the limit. So, in my opinion, and again, all of this is my opinion. I should have given a legal disclaimer. I am an attorney, but this is not legal advice. None of this is legal advice. None of this is tax advice. This is me wearing, my Yow Homebuyers investor hat. But my opinion is the sky is the limit. So if you said, I want to get 10 doors in the next 10 years, awesome, that's great. You can definitely do that. None of you wrote down very specific goals, but if you just wrote that down in your goals list, for instance, awesome. You might be able to get 10 doors in 10 years and they're paid for. Or you might say get 10 doors in 2 years and wow, there are so many more opportunities out there. There's so much more that I can do. Now I'm going to change and decide to do something even more. Some might say, man, I want to make $100,000 in wholesale assignment fees this year. Awesome. Well, when you do that by the end of May, you're going to change your goal and you're going to say, man, can I do 500 this year? Can I do $1 million? And you're continuously adapting. Before I get into any sort of the math on actual rental real estate, there are countless resources out there, some of which are fairly prominent. Bigger Pockets, anybody on Bigger Pockets? Obviously, Bigger Pockets podcast is the dominant force in real estate investment groups. And they put out a bunch of books, or at least they help promote a bunch of books. The Burr book, BRRRRRRR book. I love that strategy. I haven't read the book because I got it, but one book that was impactful for me, and people will say, oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great motivator. Have y'all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, so it tells you, yeah, I want to get into real estate. How? Right? And it doesn't tell you how, it just says you should. And it's like the rich guy saying, hey, I got a bunch of money. Don't you want a bunch of money? All right, see. And so it motivates you, it drives you, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. One book that was impactful to me was The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. That was good, and it had a lot of the how to get into real estate investing and things like that. Networking, obviously, and building relationships with other investors. I'm happy to take any of y'all to lunch, coffee, whatever, and continue to build those relationships. But developing those kinds of resources and building the knowledge base. People ask me all the time, what did I do to learn this? Who was your mentor? Well, YouTube. Bigger Pockets Podcast and YouTube University. And I've got a degree in YouTube University, of course, like many of y'all do. Do y'all watch YouTube University stuff? There's not actually a YouTube University. It's you go to YouTube and you watch videos about anything. It's how to change the oil in your car and how to invest in rental real estate and everything else. All right, so I want to start putting some stuff on the board. I know I'm going to have to turn away from the camera. Sorry if the volume's not where we want it to be, but it is what it is. We'll figure it out later. There are 4 primary ways, in my opinion, to make money in rental real estate. Can anybody tell me what those are? Primary ways when I get a rental house that I'm going to make money. What's the first one? Cash flow. It's on somebody's hat. And I'm going to put CF for cash flow. I'll abbreviate everything, and it's your job to figure out what it means. CF, cash flow. What else? If I have a loan on the house.
Appreciation.
All right, appreciation, but I'm going to put it down here. Somebody else said something?
All
right, principal reduction. I'm going to call that PR. And then what else? Your CPA is going to help you with this one. All right, your tax advantages. So there are obviously significant tax advantages for residential real estate. When I speak of residential real estate, I'm also including multifamily. I know some of us want to get into multifamily. But so when you're investing in real estate, specifically in rentals, we could have another class on flips, and we will. And I will enjoy that one just as much as this one because I love flipping and I love renting. But in rental real estate, you're going to make money in cash flow, principal reduction. I put TA for tax advantages and APP for appreciation. Because when I'm running numbers on a deal, and we're doing deal analysis, should I buy this house? These are the four very specific things that I want to be able to quantify. Now, because I'm a net worth guy, I like building net worth. I'm also going to put down here equity, right? Now this is not something where it's like, oh, you just made X number of dollars, and really some of this you're not going to, but it's a net worth builder. So when I'm analyzing a deal and I'm trying to decide, should I flip it, should I wholesale it, should I rent it, somebody brings me the house, I'm looking at a wholesaler's deal or whatever it might be, these are the things that I'm looking at to try to determine, how is this going to affect my income by way of cash flow, and how is it going to affect my net worth in terms of the other things that we're talking about, one of which would of course be the equity. Anybody know what the 1% rule is? Give me a hand if you do. Yeah, everybody knows what the 1% rule is. If you were looking at or reading through Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, as in Keller Williams, that dude, so he says 0.8, right? 0.8. I'm going to put 0.80. And then I say 1%. And y'all know what that is because we all talk about the 1% rule. And then I'd say 1.2% rule. Which would you rather have if given the option between the three?
1.2.
Yeah, 1.2 obviously. So y'all already understand the math behind this. This rule, for those who don't know, is just if I'm looking at $1,000 a month rent in this particular deal, how much can I justify investing in this project by way of acquisition costs, holding costs, renovation costs, refinance costs, all in. What's my investment going to be if I want to hit 1%?
$100,000.
$100,000. So if you say you can buy this house for $100,000, and it's going to be a 1% rule deal because it rents for $1,000 a month, I'm going to call you a liar. Why?
Because that doesn't mean that doesn't include any like rehab
Bam.
or actual renovation.
Because when I buy that house from Anthony's got the deal. It's $100,000. You can buy this house. It's a 1% deal. It comes in the email with a buyer's list of 1 million people. 1 million people are looking at this deal, and they're all suckers, and they're all like, 1%, awesome. $100,000, $1,000 a month. Great. I buy the house, $100,000. Oh, snap. What do I got to pay? Closing costs. And if I'm financing it, I got to pay origination fees and appraisal fees and things like that. And I like the burst strategy, so I'll pay cash to close at $100,000. Really, it's like 101 or 102 by the time I get it closed. And then I'll take it to a bank and I'll refinance it, and they're like, well, I want a 3% origination fee and all these crazy things. And so now I'm in at 105, 106. Well, and it needs flooring and paint and a couple of repairs, and that's going to take about 2 months because labor supply and lumber supply and all the different things. So now we're talking 2 or 3 months down the road before I can rent it. Well, you know what you got during that time? Taxes, PG said. Taxes, insurance, utilities. I got to cut the grass because the HOA and the neighbors and all the different things. And so now I'm all into the deal for 110, 120, 125, right? And I'm in at 125 and it rents for $1,000 a month. So now we're looking more like this 0.8% deal. Now the reason I kind of go through that is because Gary Keller in his book says, don't care, just do it. The easiest way to build that retirement portfolio of, let's say, 10 doors is once a year you take 20% down, you put it on the house, and you look for these 0.8%, just base hit deals, and they're going to cash flow a little bit, maybe, they might break even. You get a low cash on cash return, but you're going to have principal reduction and tax advantages. They're going to appreciate. You've got a little bit of equity if you bought it right, that kind of thing. And you do that once a year, and after about 10 years, you got 10 houses that are paying for themselves. And 20 years later, you've got, a paid for portfolio that's worth, a couple $1 million. All right, that is a strategy. I like, being further down to the 1 and the 1.2% for obvious reasons, because it's just that much better. You've got better cash flow. Probably similar principal reduction as far as the loans go, similar tax advantages, the appreciation is going to be the same, and your equity is going to be the same. but it's just a better deal all around the higher up you go. So if I were to say, what's your threshold? That's kind of in my mind where we need to figure out, okay, as I'm analyzing a deal, I need to be able to figure out when is an absolutely not, move on, and when is, okay, let's actually fully analyze and evaluate this deal. And I would say it's probably the 0.8. So when Anthony brings me the $100,000 deal, I'm going to say, well, how much is closing costs, renovation costs, holding costs, all those things. Run the numbers, figure it out, and if it's a 0.8 or better, I might look deeper into it. Maybe see if he could renegotiate a price, or maybe I could renegotiate a price, or maybe the rehab doesn't take as long or cost as much, and we can be closer to that 1% deal. Now, that 0.8, 1%, and 1.2% deal, the reason I stick on 1.2% is because of habit, for one thing. In 2017, when I started, that was my threshold. I wouldn't buy anything unless it was a 1.2% deal, because I wanted to buy in and then refinance all my cash out and be zero down. And if I'm zero down, but it's a 1.2% deal, it's still going to cash flow and principal reduction, all those things. So we've got some that are 1.2% deals from their inception. Now, when you find those deals, grab them. They're hard to find these days unless you're in a really crummy area. By the way, in a crummy area, 1.5% should be your target. You know, the crummier the area, the higher the percentage should be. But, you know, some of those deals, man, we bought them at 0.8 a couple of years ago. You know what they're at right now?
2.
Well, yeah, 2. 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. I mean, you know, so you're thinking, and y'all were talking about it as we got started, you know, I'm looking at this deal and I'm hyper-analyzing this $5,000 or $10,000 spread. In a year, that spread won't matter. In 10 years, that spread will be completely inconsequential. I remember now the one that we were talking about. We're talking about a house where I'm on the couch negotiating with the seller, and they wanted 90 and I wanted it at 80, so it's 10,000. And so I'm in at 80 and they wanted 90, and I'm thinking, no, I got to get this at 80 because I got to finish out the second floor and all the different things. Fast forward 4 years later, the house is worth considerably more than I paid for it, and that $10,000 difference is inconsequential. So if I was going to lose the deal, man, it probably would have been better for me to pull the trigger at 90 and not lose the deal. But so getting into this kind of stuff, I want to create an example and put it on the board and go ahead and just write it all out for a deal analysis, because we've got, you know, a deal on the table, so to speak, that is similar to the numbers that we were talking about. And Kelly brings me a house and he says you can buy this for $80,000. It needs $15,000 in repairs. I already did all the numbers, so I can basically cheat. These $15,000 in repairs. It'll rent for $1,000, and the ARV, and for those who don't know, that's after repair value. The ARV is $150,000. Who in here would buy that deal? Who in here would buy that deal on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday? I would buy this deal all day, every day. Now, these are hard to come by, but it's something that I'm just putting out there. If you were buying on the MLS, that house is $140,000. Yeah. Right? And then they're going to say, it's the deal of the century. It's not. But if you're dealing with a wholesaler who can, you know, hustle and grind and get to the seller and knock on the door and the gutters are falling off and the bushes are growing up, and they get straight to the seller who says, oh, I just inherited this house and I hate it and I really want to get rid of it. You're the first person that knocked on my door because my dad died yesterday and I'm going to sell it tomorrow. Awesome. I can give you $80,000 cash, like Friday, right? Of course, they'll say 75, get it under contract, assign it to you at 80. But anyway, so here's the deal. So $80,000 purchase price, $15,000 in repairs, rents for $1,000. What do I have missing from this equation? We already talked about it some. Closing costs, refinance costs, holding costs, that kind of thing. So we're talking about a $95,000 injection of capital plus closing costs, holding costs, refinance costs, that kind of thing. My strategy that I prefer is the Burr strategy, where I'm going to pay cash. Whether from my cash, from a line of credit, you might use a hard money lender. You're going to go to the table and you're going to have a cashier's check that's going to close on the house. You're not going to a bank and saying, hey, I found this house. I need the next 45 days to be an absolute nightmare. Can you appraise it and then the appraiser not go? That'd be awesome. And if the appraisal's due, in 30 days, can you make sure he brings it to me in 40? So it's not like you're going to a bank for a commercial loan, but you can do that, especially if you've got long enough in due diligence. A guy brings me a house yesterday. It's $500-something thousand house. It's going to be worth more than that when we sell it. But he brings me this house. That's the kind of house I might say, well, let me go ahead and get 30 days due diligence. I'll get an appraisal. I'll put a commercial loan on it because everybody knows it's a $500,000 house. The $80,000 house, if you're going to get that house, if you're going to beat me out of this house, you got to be able to close Tuesday in cash, right? So have your hard money lender lined up, get a line of credit from your bank, whatever it is that you're going to do. Or maybe, Sean's probably got $100,000 on him, and that's cool too. So you know that you're going to spend about $95,000 plus. If you are then going to keep it as a rental, I'm going to pay cash for that, $80,000 to buy it plus the closing costs and stuff, $15,000 in repairs. I'm going to immediately take it to one of my commercial lenders, like Sally Ely at F&M Bank. This is Chris's Van and White impression from yesterday. So I'm going to take it to my commercial lender and I'm going to say, hey, I bought this house. I own it free and clear. Now, it doesn't matter that I borrowed money from a line of credit to buy it, but I own this house free and clear. If I own the house free and clear, I'm going to say I want to put debt on the house. And so they're going to say, all right, let's get an appraisal and do the whole thing where it takes 20, 30, 40 days, all the things. You're going to pay an origination fee. Usually it's a 0.5% or 1% origination fee at a commercial lender. You're going to pay more closing costs again. You're going to pay for the increased title, what am I trying to say? Title insurance premiums, because maybe you first bought it at 80, but now it's worth significantly more and you're going to want a bigger loan. You're going to have more insurance premiums. But anyway, so you're going to have some refinance costs in that. You're also going to have the holding costs, in addition to the renovation costs, things like that. So what I typically do is say, if I'm going to refinance a house, 3%. Just going to add 3% to the deal. So now 3% of rounding up to 100, 3,000, so it's going to cost me about 3 to refi at Apex Title, right? With F&M Bank or whomever. And so now we're also talking, well, what am I going to do about the repairs? The repairs aren't going to happen immediately, no matter how much I try. I've got a project manager. He's great. He is amazing. I say, hey, we're closing on this particular day. Have the dumpster dropped that day. Have the workers waiting in the driveway for me to text them and say, I've closed, go to work. And it just doesn't happen. So a couple days later, somebody goes to the house and says, oh, but I didn't get this from Lowe's. A couple days later, they bring it back from Lowe's. And rehab takes a while. For those of you who have already done that, do you agree that it's, yes. It's a grueling process. And so even though it's a paint floor, cosmetic, it needs a sink diverter or shower diverter kind of thing, still going to take a couple of months. As a general rule, I say $1,000 a month. As a general rule. By the time you account for taxes on a $150,000 house, insurance on, a small rental like that, this is probably a 3-1, maybe a 2-2 or a 3-2. By the time you do taxes, insurance, utilities, cutting the grass a couple of times or whatever, 2 months maybe goes by. Now we're at, guess what, 100,000. So in this hypothetical, we're talking about I am dumping into it $100,000. Now, the beauty of this one is it's worth what? 150. So when I go to the bank, TJ, get a calculator. So when I go to the bank and I say, hey, I want to refinance this house, I bought it for 80, I'm putting this much money into it, I think it's going to be worth $200,000. And they're like, let's get an appraisal. And they appraise it at, 150. All right, what's 0.75, 150?
I did 0.8.
You can do 0.8, I don't care.
0.8 was 120.
All right, so banks will typically lend 0.75 or 0.8 of appraised value. So if the house appraises at 150, how much are they going to lend you? Well, maybe 120, right? Now, do I go in there and say, all right, I want 120? Well, that's a strategy decision. If you want 120, you only spent 100, now you got 20 in your pocket, and you're going to go throw it at whatever. You might use that money to pay down debt and that kind of thing. But remember, what does this house rent for? $1,000. If I borrow all 120, what does that make it? I erased it, a 0.8% deal, right? I want it to be a 1% deal. Now, again, this is my strategy. I want as many of these in my portfolio as I can get. If I can get 1,000 of these in my portfolio, I'll do it because they're all individually paying for themselves. So I'm zeroed down in this house when I say, hey, it appraised for whatever, you'll loan me 120. I only want 100. This is just my MO. This is my typical deal. I'll only borrow 100 because as a standalone, that is a positively cash flowing deal. If that house is worth 200 and they say we'll loan you 0.8, we'll loan you 80% loan to value. That's $160,000, and you say, awesome, give me $160,000. It negatively cash flows. Now, granted, you got 60 grand to go do something with, but it negatively cash flows. Now, if it appraised for 200, you might conceivably say, all right, I want to borrow 100, but I want a line of credit on the equity. That's the second or third class, right? That's a brilliant strategy because now you've got access to that 60, but you're not paying interest on that 60 unless you're using it. But we can talk more about that later. So anyway, see, now you've got your $100,000 deal. How much equity is in that deal? Easy math, 150, sorry. I'm just assuming that I know everything and my ARV is right. So you're talking about $50,000 in equity. So immediately, as soon as I buy that deal and I've got it renovated, I've got it tenant occupied, it's now on my portfolio spreadsheet. It increased my net worth by $50,000, right? Now if I sell it, let's say I change my mind. I'm going to flip this out. So I decide I've got 100 in it, I'm going to sell it. Let's do a little flip analysis. You got your calculator, TJ. 150 minus, we're typically paying 7% and 6% in commissions, about 1% in closing costs when we're selling things these days. So do 150,000 minus 7%.
10.5.
Minus the 100 that we've injected into it. And then how much do I net?
39.5.
All right, so 39.5. Now, the difference is I put that in my pocket. We're not done yet. Versus 50,000 in equity. Again, I tell you, I'm a net worth builder. My newest hobby, by the way, you might have deduced this, is making millionaires. I want to make millionaires, and it's so exciting. You're going to learn more about it the more you learn about me. But imagine if on paper you've increased your net worth by 50,000 on this deal, and you do 10 of these, you've increased your net worth by $500,000. You do 20 of these, now you've increased your net worth by $1 million, right? All right, on paper, you've increased your net worth by $50,000 in this deal, but you're evaluating, maybe I just sell it because I'd love to have that cash. Now you got $39.5. Oh, wait a minute. No, you don't, because you're going to pay
Taxes.
Uncle Sam. Now, how much are we paying in short-term capital gains on average, you think? It varies from person to person, depending on their, 36%. Let's do 40. Let's do 40. Just so that we've got a frame of reference. So take 39.5 minus 40%.
23.7 is net.
So now I'm netting
No, that's a net.
39.5 minus
40% of
40%.
is 15.8 in tax.
Right. So now I'm netting 23.7.
Yep.
That's the number that I want to get to. All right, so let's say you decided, man, I see flipping on TV, and these flippers are, Glorious Mansion, Millionaires, whatever. I want to flip. Well, you put $23,000 in the bank. All right, so you increase your net worth by how much? $23.7. Or you've increased your net worth the second you put it into your portfolio by $50,000. What is your prerogative is your prerogative. You've got to evaluate both of those things. Now, if I'm evaluating this deal and I say, wow, it appraised at $200. I was going to rent it, but it turned out to be a $200,000 house. We do all this math again, and we say, what am I going to actually put in my pocket? Now, I've got a project manager, so I'm actually going to take a percentage off of that, pay the project manager, and then my net is going to be a little bit lower than that. And then I'm going to give because I want to be charitable. I want to give to the people in our community that are in need. And so now, whatever that final number is, that's the number that I actually have in the bank to grow net worth, to pay my bills with, to buy Erin some shoes with. We're just kidding. Never mind. We're building a new closet for Erin. Have y'all seen it? It's still on my Facebook page.
My closet is a garage.
It's a 6-car garage with an 1,800 square foot bonus room, but I'm calling it her closet. All right, so anyway. So, what can I pay that contractor to build that thing in my house for? Well, this is how much money actually hits the bank, whatever that math is. So you do the math, you figure it out, but you also figure out what is your prerogative. Most of you said financial freedom, generational wealth, passive income. If you sell it, what does it do towards those goals?
Wipes them out.
I'm going to say nothing. I mean, it wipes it. It does nothing. Now, but man, that's $40,000 that I actually put in the bank. You know what you're going to do with that $40,000?
pay taxes and spend it on other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to disappear. Every house I've ever flipped, and I've flipped a whole bunch of houses over the last 5 years or so. Every house I've ever flipped, every dollar that we've ever gotten from a flip house is gone. Now, most of it, what have I done with it?
Reinvest.
I've reinvested. I buy more houses because I see the big picture and I'm trying to build generational wealth. And so you might say, well, I can take that money and reinvest it into the next deal or put it in marketing for wholesaling or whatever it is that you might do. But you weigh that against what is it going to do to my net worth. Now, if you tell me, hey, this house turned out to appraise at 200, you know what I'm looking at over here? I want, on paper, my net worth to go up by 100,000. Let me do that 9 more times. I made $1 million this year. You know, and that's where my mind is. Because years and years and years from now, you know, that appreciation continues to go up. The tax advantage, the principal reduction, the cash flow, you're adding all that stuff together, and at the end of whatever it is that is your journey, whether it's in your life or your children's lives, or your children's lives, somebody is going to be like, holy cow, we got all these paid for houses, and we got all these houses that have appreciated this much, or all this cash flow that's coming in, and we got, you know, you look all the way back 30 years ago in 2022, can you believe you could get a loan at 4% in 2022? Man, it's 10% now, but we locked it in back then. You know, all the different things. Whatever it is, if you've got that big picture, long-term goal, I tend to think that building generational wealth, building passive income, reaching financial freedom is not going to be exclusively getting rid of the house. Now, I'll show you something cool. Well, y'all might be able to see it. So my dry erase board over there, I don't want to put it out over the internet, but I got a dry erase board over there that's got all of my active projects. And I'll put next to the active project an F or an R. That is just my thoughts. I think we should flip this, or I think we should rent this. That changes from time to time, of course. I do the numbers over and over and over throughout the process. We might spend too much on the renovation, or we might get away without spending very much on the renovation. And I try to analyze, should I flip this or should I rent this? The majority of the time, it's rent because of that big picture goal. All right, so I've beaten that horse to death and then kept beating it. So looking at this particular deal, you've got $100,000 in the deal. You've refinanced the deal. Okay, you refinanced the deal. You got all your money back, or maybe you refinanced $80,000, right? And you left $20,000 in, or you refinanced $90,000. Some banks, by the way, F&M's one of them, a lot of times they're going to want, you know, a 90% loan to cost or 80% loan to cost. So I've got $100,000 in the deal, or I've got $80,000 in the acquisition, and they'll only loan you 80% of that or 90% of that rather than being able to refinance all your money out. They're also at a 1% origination fee right now, which some other banks have a lower, some other banks have a higher origination fee. So you kind of weigh your options. I'll tell you the significant majority of my portfolio is with F&M. They're amazing. But anyway, so you're going to refinance, and let's say you refinance 80, 90, 100,000. In this hypothetical, I'm going to leave the house's ARV and value at 150, and I'm going to try to make it beat the 1% rule, or at least be at the 1% rule. And I'm going to say the equity is 50,000. So you know, on paper right now, your net worth is increased by 50,000. Some of the cool things that you can do on your phone, you can download investment property calculators. Do y'all already have some of those? All right, a couple of you. You need to download, and we're not going to do it right now, like I'm not going to demonstrate it, but that's how I did these numbers. If you download the investment property calculator, you can literally plug and chug all the numbers. And there are a bunch of apps out there that do that. There are a bunch of websites where you can plug it in live on the website kind of thing. But if you plug it in, and I ran numbers on an actual house that fits these numbers with actual taxes, property taxes on the house, actual insurance on the house, etc., actual management, I did all that, and I came up with what the total number of dollars are on this. But for your edification, when we do that, you're saying, all right, so I'm buying the house at $100,000, and you can plug in the numbers on your loan calculator, how much I'm borrowing, what my interest rate is, what my payment's going to be, and all that. But you would say minus, I'm sorry, that's not how I should do that. You're looking at $1,000 a month coming in. $1,000 a month coming in, minus you got your mortgage, that's MTG. I know you can't see that in the back, but you get the idea. Minus you got property taxes, minus insurance, minus whatever other things that you might maintain. It might be that I'm covering the lawn care, or I'm covering the trash pickup or whatever. That's especially common in multifamily.
Management fees.
So then you've got management fees. So get this, you got management fees, and how much are management fees on average right
8
now?
to 10%.
8 to 10%. You call around, you can find 8%. You call around some more, you get 10%. I've heard as high as 12 or 15%, which is insane. But typically managers will start at 10%. When you get 5 or 6 or 10 houses, they'll drop you down to 9% or 8%. Some are going to say, I'll do it at 8%, but I want the first month's rent or half of the first month's rent. You just do the math, you figure all that out. But let's say management expense is going to be 8%. And then what else do you have? I'm going to say CapEx, repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, and I'm going to lump all those into one. Now, what is CapEx? What's that short for? Capital expenditures. I don't need a roof tomorrow, but I need a roof 10 years from now. And the roof is going to cost $10,000. That's $1,000 a year. That's roughly $87 a month that I need to be allocating towards that roof. Well, you know what? Oh man, there's a washer and dryer in this unit, and there's a fridge and a water heater and a foundation and whatever other things that are capital expenditures. I need to allocate some of my dollars every month toward that, because if I don't, what's going to happen? Oh man, I need a roof. Oh man, I need a water heater, and I don't have that money because I spent it because I'm not, particularly good at this. So you're going to say, I'm going to set aside a certain number of dollars every month. And what I would recommend is you take those dollars and you literally set them aside and say, this is not cash flow. Okay? Notice, this is going to get to a number that amounts to cash flow. CapEx is not cash flow. You hear people say, oh, I cash flow $400 a month on this house. Okay? 350 of that is CapEx, repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. You cash flow $50, right? So stop lying, right? Don't inflate the numbers. You're only doing yourself harm. When I came to that realization, it was eye-opening, because to me, I realized rental real estate is not going to make you rich on cash flow. You might be able to supplement your income. You might even be able to replace your day job's income, but you're not going to get rich off cash flow. What do you get rich off of? The whole thing. So we're going to talk about the whole rate of return, not just cash flow. Oh, but if I make $400 a month in cash flow on this one and I get 10 of those, now I make $4,000 a month, I'm going to quit my job, and that's great. All right, so you quit your job, and then the water heater goes out in 2 of your units. The refrigerator goes out on the stainless refrigerator goes out on your nicest unit, and you wind up having a $4,000 month of expenses, of CapEx. Right. So don't include that CapEx in your expenses. I'm going to attribute, let's say, 5% to this one. Repairs and maintenance are two different things. Maintenance is when they call you and they say, hey, the water heater went out. The water heater itself is CapEx. The maintenance is, I'm going to go and replace the, pressure regulator valve on the water heater. I'm going to replace the elements in the water heater. That's maintenance. Maintenance is, I got a call or an email. I don't get calls. I get the email saying, hey, this tenant says we got all these different things that are wrong, and it's all terrible, and the house is terrible, and whatever. We got to fix all these things, and it was thousands of dollars worth of things. And when I go through the list, the only things that are actually things that needed to be fixed, like they said, this is an older water heater. It still works, but it's older. Can you put, what do you call the ones that are in line, that are the water heaters?
Tankless?
Yeah, tankless water. Can we get a $4,000 tankless water heater, since this one looks to be kind of... No! At the end of the day, it was a shower diverter that really needed to be done on that list. So anyway, shower diverters, $100, $150 fix or whatever, that's a maintenance item. Repairs, when the turnovers come. So when the tenants leave, or you kick them out, or you got to evict them, or whatever happens, and you're man, this carpet's pretty rough, we got to replace that. They had a dog and they tore it up. Yeah, they're, pet deposit's going to apply to some of that, but you got $1,200 worth of flooring to put in this particular room. That's repairs. I like to allocate 5% to repairs, 5% to maintenance, and what do you think a good vacancy rate should be? 5% maybe? All right, in Clarksville, I've historically gotten less than a 5% vacancy rate, which is great. Lord willing, it stays that way. Let me knock down all the wood I can find. So I'm going to say 20%. For CapEx, repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So you don't have to analyze every deal to this extent. You don't have to do, what are the actual numbers? All right, how old is the water heater? How old is the roof? How old is the fridge? Now, some people on their first couple of deals, they might do that so that they understand it, and that's great. When I'm analyzing a deal very quickly, I say 20%. And when I'm plugging the numbers into my investment property calculator, I'm going to say 28%. All right, so when I've got $1,000 a month coming in, minus the mortgage, minus the property taxes, minus the insurance, minus the 28%, it is super easy for me to figure out at the end of the spreadsheet or at the end of the calculator, what is my cash flow? And on that deal, does anybody want to just guess what the monthly cash flow is in this real Clarksville house that I use for this example? Shot at our guess. Hit me.
$50.
Pretty close. It was $87. So $87 a month, which amounts to $1,045 in year one. Now, is $87 a month going to change my life? No. It's not going to change my month. It's not going to change anything, right? But if I had 10 of these, how much is it? $870. If I had 100 of these, $8,700, right? So now we're starting to see like where the scalability with rental real estate is. I don't want you to get one. I want you to get 10, or I want you to get 100 or 1,000. You know, I want you to scale up. But we're going to play with the numbers. If I borrowed all 100,000, I ran an amortization calculator. Another app you should get besides the investment property calculator is the amortization calculator. If you can get a free app, of course you got ads, but it says amortization calculator. It's super simple. If you like doing it on the computer instead of your phone, you can go to bankrate.com or any MoneyChimp, places like that have
Not
amortization. Huh?
Not sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored, but if you want to. You go to one of those websites that has an amortization calculator, and it's basically a loan payment calculator, but then you hit show schedule. So if you do a mortgage calculator, it'll say, what's my payment going to be, or how much house can I afford, which is the dumbest thing anybody could go to that for. But anyway, so you say, all right, so I got a $100,000 house, I'm putting 0 down, it's at 4% interest with, say, a 25-year amortization, blah, 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 blah. You plug in all those numbers for the actual loan, irrespective of closing costs and all that, because you're talking about that $100,000. What is your payment going to be on $100,000? And that's what would go over there. How much of that in the amortization schedule is in principal? Now, you're not going to know that unless you actually run the calculator. I did. It's $198 per month in principal reduction. And the payment on that is something like, $450 or whatever it was. Of that, maybe $500. Of that, actually I did write it down, $528 would be the payment on this particular deal in the analysis that I ran, $528 a month. Of that $528 a month, in year one, and again, it's going to change year after year because of the nature of an amortization calculator, I'm going to be paying principal down $198 a month on average. When you look at the amortization schedule, you take the first one and the last one for the period that you're looking at, and you divide it by the period, you get the average. So I do that by 12. First one is going to be principal reduction $190. The last one in the year is going to be $205 or whatever. So $198 a month in principal reduction, which amounts to $2,376 in year one. Now, already, what do you notice? My net worth is going up much greater by the principal reduction than the cash flow. And remember that cash flow, I'm conceivably paying taxes on it, or I'm, spending a night on the town with $87, and boy, that lasts a long time. So you notice your principal being reduced is increasing your net worth by that $198, which is significantly more than the cash flow. All right, what about tax advantages? And I'll blow through this. Tax advantages, I'm going to write down here. What are a couple of major functions of rental real estate for purposes of calculating the tax advantage?
Depreciation.
All right, so you got the depreciation deduction, which is fantastic. All right, give us an dissertation on what, no, I'm just kidding, don't do that. Besides the depreciation deduction, which I'll explain, what else do you get?
Deducting interest?
All right, so you got mortgage, interest, and then there's another one that's actually on that list.
Repairs.
All right, property taxes. Now you can add to that repairs, any injection of capital that I made into the property in that particular calendar year, how much am I paying in insurance and other deductible expenses. What I like to do for the TA portion of this, my tax advantages, I want to figure out, generally speaking, what are the big three. Now if you say, but I put a $6,000 roof on it, that's a big one. Yeah, but that's not every year. These are every year. You're going to have a depreciation deduction, mortgage interest deduction if you put bank money on it, and your property taxes. And you can calculate that. When you add all those things up together and you figure whatever my actual effective tax rate is, and let's say it's 25%, which is what I put on here. Again, everybody's tax situation is different. I added up something like a $10,444 deduction times 0.25. The tax advantages on this are somewhere around $2,611. Now that is very generic, very general. Do not hold me to that. Your tax situation is different than mine. Every house is different. Everybody's tax rate's different. Your CPA may say we can do an accelerated depreciation, blah, 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 all the different things. There's so many different ways to do that. This is a very overgeneralized understanding of the tax advantages of rental real estate. But if I'm even close, what does that do to your net worth in year one? It saves you $2,611, and let's say you're a realtor and you make money in real estate, or you've got a flip house and you made money on that. Anyway, you can deduct that $10,400. Again, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not a CPA, but my understanding is, you're going to be able to increase your net worth by saving about $2,600 on your taxes, your tax liability. That's money in your pocket. I'll tell you how that's money in your pocket. What I do is every dollar that I make in real estate, or anything for that matter, it goes into the bank. And let's say I made $10,000 on this particular thing. I immediately take 25% of that, again using that generalized effective tax rate, I immediately take 25% of that and I put it somewhere else. That $2,500 I'm going to put somewhere else. I'm going to put in an online bank account that I don't have ready access to, that if I wanted to get it back, it's going to take me 2 days to transfer the money, that kind of thing. That is my pre-tax account because I want to pay my quarterly taxes or my annual taxes, and I'm going to get it out of that bank account. So if you do that, and if every dollar that you make, whether by flipping or renting, you put a quarter of that aside to pay your taxes, then when the tax man comes due and he says you owe $2,500 on this particular $10,000 that you made, I've got it. And I don't run into any issues with the tax man, it's there. Now, what happens when I say, I bought this house and I get to write off this much money and it's a $2,600 savings? What happens to that $2,500 that's sitting in that account? I can move it back to the one that is now mine, all mine, because I didn't have to pay the IRS. Right? So that's how tax advantages actually result in money increasing your net worth. And that's really cool. All right, so appreciation, you got a $150,000 house. I know we've seen greater than 4% appreciation in this market over the last couple of years. I'm going to use 4% because I want to be conservative and I want to build a foundation for you for years and years to come. Some are more conservative and say 3%. Some are more aggressive and say, well, historically, and I mean the last 2 years, we've done 8 to 12% or whatever. You can factor in whatever appreciation you want. I'm going to say this $150,000 house today, 1 year from now, if it goes up by 4%, is worth what?
It's $4,000. 104.
106. We're not looking at how much I spent. We're looking at what it's worth, which was 150, right? So 6,000, right? So it increases my net worth at the end of year one, $6,000. Did y'all follow me on that?
Yeah.
Because then, and y'all know about compound interest, right? Compound interest is one of the greatest phenomena you can imagine. Compounding interest, there's another calculator for that, bankrate.com or MoneyChimp or places like that. I'm sure there's an app. You do compound interest and say, okay, what if I took this house that's worth $150 right now and I went 4% a year and run that out 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. What's that house going to be worth then? The average historic, let's say, appreciation, maybe 3%. Let me do 3%. Be a little conservative. That house, if you ran the numbers, it's worth, I don't know, I'll throw a number, maybe $500,000, right? So in 25 years, let's say it's worth $500,000. You think, no, there's no way that house could be worth $500,000. Look at how much that house was 30 years ago. It was like $20,000, It was almost nothing. I mean, it was really raw land, but you can get it. So you got these houses that, have any of y'all bought houses from people who have owned them for 30 years? And you look back at the tax records and you see how much they paid for it? And they're selling it to me for $100,000, but they paid $26,000. Are you serious? Well, I give you 27 right now. All right, so is it inconceivable that it's going to continue to grow? Obviously not. It's going to. That's why we are in this class. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So somebody add all this up for me. Never mind, I already did it. Did I do it? No, somebody add all that up for me. I didn't do it.
Well, waiting on yourself.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, right?
You're the human
Uh,
calculator.
10, 987, 1187.
$12,032.
I think you missed one, but something like $12,000. Just kidding with you. So something like $12,000.
I'm not gonna cut you short.
So this deal, well, 6, 2 and 2 is 10. That's 11, 12. You're right. So something like $12,000. So this particular deal, and remember, this is one that I actually bought, ran actual numbers. They are out there. This deal at 0% down works fantastic because in a year I've increased my net worth by how much?
$12,000.
You are so wrong. You're not paying attention. $62,000. Because how much do I have in it?
50.
I got 100. I got 100 in the deal. It's worth 150, so I've already got 50 in equity on paper, increasing my net worth. And then at the end of year one, you add up how much cash flow and how much principal reduction and the tax advantages and how much it's appreciated. Now it's a $156,000 house. You added that extra 12 to it. I've increased my net worth in year one by this one deal by $62,000. So I do it 10 times. Now it's $620,000. I do it 100 times. Now, $620. So you just continue to grow the portfolio by that. Now, if I'm analyzing a rental versus a flip, remember when I had it written over here what it would make if I flipped it, and it was like $23,000? Now you really have to weigh, I could have $23,000 now, that's not going to last very long, or $62,000 in a year. And then you can keep that spreadsheet going, you can keep that calculator going and say, well, what about 5 years? What about 10 years? What about 15 years? What about 20 years? And you start looking at the amazing power of rental real estate, and all of a sudden I'm going to start keeping more houses than I flip. When I figured all of this out years ago, I decided, well, I'm going to, instead of flipping, I'm going to keep as many as I can. And even if it was a 0.8% deal, and maybe I could make $50,000 net if I flip it, that's 100 to my net worth if I keep it. And you might analyze those things and you say, well, I want to continue to grow for generational wealth, like we've been talking about, for passive income, like we've been talking about, and I want to keep as many as possible. My standard operating is about 3 to 1, maybe 4 to 1. I'll keep 4 rentals for every one that I flip, or 3 rentals for every one that I flip, and that varies. Again, it's by the deal. It depends on what numbers actually spit out. I heard somebody say recently, fall in love with the numbers. Like when you analyze the deal and you say, wow, the flip would do this, the rental would do this, I love this over here. Fall in love with the numbers, then take down the deal. All right, so as you're looking at some of these things, some of you, not all of you, said I want passive income. If I have passive income as my goal, that is, to me, different than financial freedom and generational wealth. Because passive income is going to be spent. You're going to pay taxes on it. You're going to spend it on groceries. It's going to go away. But some of you may want to replace your job. You may want to supplement your income, whatever it might be. What are you going to do to increase that cash flow? Some of you actually put on there, what's my goal? Cash flow. What are you going to do to increase that cash flow on this particular deal?
Take a smaller loan, I guess.
Boom. So if I want to make the cash flow go up, I need some of these things, the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, etc., to go down. You might negotiate with your manager who's charging you 8%, go down to 7%. Or when you get a bunch of doors, 6 or 5 or whatever it might, whatever you might be able to sell them on, don't be too aggressive. Your managers are going to earn every penny of it. Start at 10%, work your way. Just run the numbers based on that 10%. But you might be able to reduce some of these things, like, if I can save some money on my management or get a better quote on my insurance, or maybe there's some sort of tax advantage on the property taxes. Property taxes. All right, so when you look at your property taxes, you might say, well, this house is on ever so much land and it's eligible for greenbelt or something. I don't know. And what about the mortgage? Well, the mortgage payment was the biggest one. Of that $1,000 a month, you're losing $528. Now, you're getting back, by way of principal reduction, $198, But down here when we talked about mortgage interest with the deductions that we might have, $330 of that per month is interest on average in the first year. Literally $330 a month. Well, if I want to reduce my mortgage, I want to borrow less money. How do you borrow less money? Well, I got $10,000 in my pocket or my savings account. I'm going to put $10,000 down on this. Or I got 20 grand. I'm going to put 20 grand down on this. And so now your debt is not 100,000, but it's 80,000. And let's say your debt is 80,000. Your mortgage payment goes down. You can amortize it over a longer period of time. Things like that to get that down. Now your cash flow goes up. So if you're investing for cash flow, one strategy is throw money at the deal. Now, if I'm putting 20 grand in this deal, right, 20% down, and then on the next one, 20 grand, and then on the next one, 20 grand, what am I going to run out of?
Money.
I'm eventually going to run out of money. So that strategy, to me, is great, and it is scalable to some degree, but it's not as scalable as the BRRRR strategy, where you might be able to refinance the significant majority, if not all of your money out. So I don't really worry about the cash flow. If I break even or slightly better, great. My target is $100 a month cash flow after all expenses. Remember, I'm not inflating that by including some of this in the cash flow to brag $300 or $400 a month cash flow. I don't care if it makes $100 a month, but if it makes $100 a month, I know this works. And generally speaking, a 1% deal is going to cash flow about $100 a month based on this historical data and the numbers that I've proven over and over again. All right, but if I want to make my cash flow go up, there are other strategies. You can do an interest-only loan. What's an interest-only loan? We are making IO payments on that debt, and that is a strategy that a lot of people employ. If they're only making interest-only payments, say I'm borrowing $100,000 to do the deal, but I'm only going to make interest-only payments. I've still got the $50,000 in equity, but I'm not getting any of the principal reduction because I'm only paying interest. But what did I tell you the interest was on this particular loan in year one? $330. So instead of $530, I'm only deducting from my monthly rent $330. That made my cash flow go up by $200. Now I'm actually making $287 a month in cash flow. But what am I losing? I'm losing the principal reduction. So my net worth is going to go up by the $287. But I'm not going to have that principal reduction because I'm not paying it down. So a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, what do you owe on that house? The same amount, $100,000. Now, is that of any consequence to you? Maybe, maybe not. Again, it's your strategy, not mine. I don't like that strategy, but I have great friends who love that strategy, who have quit their jobs, who live off of IO cash flow rentals, right? Now, 10 years from now, when that debt is still $100,000, and I'm laughing and saying, your debt is still as high as when you paid it, what's the house worth in 10 years? $300,000? Who cares, right? So that particular example of a friend of mine who does IO stuff, he doesn't care, because 10 years from now, the house is worth $300,000. It just does not matter for him, because he wants that cash flow. He's living off of that cash flow. Quit the job, living off of the income, paying your bills, paying your groceries and that kind of stuff. It's your strategy, that strategy, my strategy, whatever, you decide on your strategy, and then you do it over and over and over again. And I just to tell you what the numbers are, what I like to do is when I do these analytics on a deal, when I'm analyzing a deal, I want to know what is my rate of return. If I put $100,000 into the deal and I cash flow $1,045 in year one, what is my cash on cash return? If I'm zero down, this is for the math nerds in the room.
Infinite return.
Oh, what a nerd. It is infinite. I give you $0. Remember, all of that is bank money. I give you $0. You give me $1,000 a year. How many times will I do that deal? All day, every day, twice on Sunday. I'll do that over and over again. Right? If it makes sense. Now, if you put 10 or 20% down, let me stop. The reason it's infinite is because you're dividing by a zero, right? And you can't do that. So if you really want to get hyper technical, you might say 0.001 or whatever when you're running the numbers. What is my cash on cash return? COCR for when I continue to teach y'all. Cash on cash return, 0% would be an infinite cash on cash return. I give you $0, you give me $1. Let's do that over and over and over again. I would do that over and over. If I put 10% down on this deal, $10,000 down, I'm borrowing 90. Your cash flow goes up a little bit. Your principal reduction is about the same. Tax advantage is about the same. Appreciation, equity, all the other things are about the same, but your cash on cash is actually quantifiable. Your cash flow is $139 a month, $1,679 year one. That is a 17%. It's actually 16 point something. Cash on cash return. If you did 20% down, do you think your cash on cash return goes up or down? I'm putting 20 grand into the deal. Cash flow goes up and everything else stays, relatively the same. If I put 20% down, cash flow is $192 a month, $2,300 a year. Is my cash on cash return going to go up or down when I put more money into it?
Down.
It goes down. Remember, you started at infinite, and then it went down to 17. And then when you put 20% down, this particular deal, and this is, I didn't tell you the address, but this is again a real deal. If I put 20% down, the cash on cash return is 11.5%. Now, some people have a threshold for deals. It's got to be a 1% deal. It's got to be a $100,000 or more house. I need $50,000 or more equity or whatever. Some people have a cash on cash return threshold. I'm only going to invest my money if I can get double-digit cash on cash return. Great. That's your goal. That's what it is. I like a 15% or higher cash on cash return. Because if I'm going to put that cash into a thing, it needs to perform better than another thing that I could have done with that money. Otherwise, it's opportunity cost. You know what opportunity cost is. I could do this or this. I choose to do this to the dismay of this. I can't do this because I'm doing it. So if I put 20 grand, I got $100,000 in cash. I'm going to put 20 in this one, this one, this one. I can only do 5. If I'm choosing to do this one, I need a good cash on cash return to justify that. Because otherwise, I could put it in the market. Maybe it goes up by 15%. I made better money. I don't know. All right. Ignoring for a minute that, and I'm going to say, I like this 10% cash on cash return. 17% cash on cash return with 10% down. Assuming hypothetically you did that, I don't just want to know what my cash on cash return is. I want to know what's the IRR. Does anybody know what that stands for? Internal rate of return. So the IRR, the internal rate of return, it's defined different in a bunch of different circles, financial guru circles, real estate investor circles. I want to tell you how, 10 minutes, I want to tell you how I define IRR, everything. So when we're teaching, when I'm talking to you guys in the future, my IRR is a global rate of return. The internal rate of return, like what is this deal going to net me? So what I did is I said, if I'm going to put 10% down, here's the cash on cash return, which really only has anything to do with cash flow. What about the principal reduction, the tax advantages, and the appreciation? And when you add up the other numbers, which are not up here, they're changed a little bit, the total rate of return, when you talk about principal reduction for net worth increase, tax advantages for money that I'm not paying in taxes, appreciation because it's growing my net worth by $6,000, and so forth. What do you think the total rate of return is on this particular deal?
70%. idea.
Anybody else? 100.
Nice.
100. It's roughly 100. I had to fudge the numbers to make it 100. No, I'm just kidding. I rounded a couple of things, and it came out to 100, right? And if you think about it, $6,000 here, $2,000 and some change here, $2,000 and some change here, and then cash flow. And I put how much down? I put $10,000 down, and in year one, my net worth went up by more than $10,000. It wasn't about 100%, it was greater than 100%. So if I said, if you give me $10,000, in a year, I'll give you $20,000. I'm going to give you your money back, and I'm going to give you $10,000. That rate of return is what? 100% rate of return. Can you get that in the stock market? No. Can you get that on Bitcoin? Maybe. But rental real estate is what's got the ability to do that. Now that's year stinking one, right? Year one. So my intro to real estate, rental real estate class is going to encourage you, let's shoot for that. Let's shoot for getting 100% rate of return or 75% rate of return, 125% IRR on these deals so that we can grow and grow and grow and grow. And you will build wealth faster than you can imagine in rental real estate. especially if you tie in with that. You know, this house really makes sense to flip because I'm going to net 50. And I can take that 50 and I can put it down on, you know, this house and 2 more just like it, or 3, 4 more just like it. And you start building the portfolio that way. We got a few minutes for questions. I did want to wrap it up about one. Any questions?
That IRR, now, is that based on a time frame of 12 months?
Yeah, I did a time frame of 12 months because I analyzed the deal after year 1.
Is that pretty standard, though, I guess is what I'm asking?
That's how I do it.
Okay.
So standard or not, that's how I do it because I want to know annually what's the rate of return. So when you calculate cash on cash return, it's an annual figure, 17% annually cash on cash return. Now that's not strictly true, is it? Because what are you going to do with the rents next year?
Raise them.
You're going to raise them. So that cash on cash return is going to go up. You're not injecting another $10,000 in it. It's that one $10,000 that you injected into it if you did a 90% loan to value loan. So the COCR is going to go up. The IRR is also going to go up if you annualize it. And the spreadsheets are mind blowing. I've got spreadsheets where you can factor in how long the holding period is, what the appreciated value is when I get ready to sell, the sale price minus closing costs and commissions, and when I actually capitalize on that in the return, and the IRR is in the 250% range. It's crazy how cool that is. I mean, it significantly more than 250% for that matter. If I put 10 grand into it, and then 10 years from now I made $100,000. You know what I'm saying? Like 10 grand a year for 10 years, and then you capitalize on it. Well, that'd be another, say $200,000. The rate of return, again, this is just a baseline. It's a foundational number. Is this deal worth me doing? If I'm analyzing the deal, I could have put one on the board where we said at the end of the day, heck no, I ain't buying that. I ain't buying that. That's terrible. Negative cash flow. Principal reduction's there, but I'm going to have to bring money out of my pocket to make the payment every month, that kind of thing. We could have done deals like that. But you got to be able to figure out what is the cash on cash return, what is the IRR. And I can help. I know I didn't do that math for you. I can help you with that math. Email me, follow up. We'll be able to, teach you all those things. Any other questions? Hit me. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to go. Nothing? Anybody online got any questions? No? All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That was fun, y'all.